In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. I will just let us read together this part from the second book of Kings, chapter 5. We'll read up to verse 13. And we'll discuss later on about whatever we have been reading. Now Naaman, or somebody can read?
Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." Then the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, "Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy." And it happened when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God, to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore, please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me." So it was when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he went to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel." Then Naaman went with his horses and chariots, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent his messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became furious and went away and said, "Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar and the rivers of Damascus better than the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and dipped 7 times into the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides, and came and stood before him. And he said, "Indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant."
I think this is... Okay. I would like to hear from you. What do you think about what we have been reading? I know there are many points, but you can just focus on few, and then we'll discuss later. Anything that you would like? Dr. Ayn.
Just a little girl
Yes.
that was like a captive, and she's young, and she testified to her faith without being afraid.
Yes.
And because of that, the king and Naaman and all this happened.
Yes.
So little faith can make, from the young ones also can be very effective.
Yes, very nice. Anybody would like to add?
And I liked in how even though he didn't have faith in what the prophet said, even though he's done it, he still was healed. So sometimes...
Yeah, he didn't have faith.
So you need to just listen and do what
And
the Bible says.
he was first enraged because he was thinking, "What is this?" And he was thinking in a different way that, but finally he did what he was asked to do. حد يحب يقول لنا حاجة تاني؟ دكتورة إيمان.
I love this story. When Elijah said to Naaman, go and wash, and he had certain expectation in his head. He said he should have come and called his God and waved his hand on top of me so I can get better. Sometimes we do this. We have a certain view for God to do what we want him to do in our life. And when he tells us or show us something different, sometimes we become not happy or not satisfied, but then we do it, or sometimes we don't do it. But God's way is better than our ways.
Yes. Okay. Anybody would like to comment? Any more? يعني I am going to comment on a different thing, but you might find it يعني interesting. The first thing is about this little girl and how she told her her lady, her mistress, how that about Elisha would be able to heal Naaman, her master, from his leprosy. And what is interesting here is that when Naaman heard about it, he in fact believed, and he went and asked his king to send him so that he would be healed. By this, he's showing kind of not only faith that something would heal him, but also some kind of submission to a little girl. He submitted to that. يعني maybe some other person would say, what is she saying? يعني أي كلام اللي بتقوله عيلة صغيرة دي مين اللي هيشفيني من البرص؟ But he believed and also submitted to her words and went to his king to be sent to Israel to be healed from his leprosy. Another thing that I also noticed here is that when he went and was asked to go to the Jordan River and go into the place and dip himself 7 times, and so that he would be healed. At first, he was not obeying. But when his servants told him that just do, maybe, so he listened to his servants. He submitted to his servants' words, which is strange again. Yani somebody who is like an army leader or like the general or whatever of the army, and listens to his servants who are telling him just do. This is another thing that is strange. And by this he was healed finally. I want to talk more about submission, as Abuna Benjamin was talking to us during the revival. How submission is an important thing in our lives. And many times nowadays, especially in this country or in the Western world in general, submission is something that is of old. يعني خلاص ده كان الكلام ده كان زمان أيام المسيح، أيام نعمان ده، لكن دلوقتي احنا we are all equal, we are in a free country and we are so and so, and this is something that is not real. متهيألي وقت ما كان أبونا بنيامين بيتكلم برضو كان في بعض الناس مش عاجبهم الكلام، هو حتى في آخر كلامه قال متهيألي أنا مش هيجيبوني تاني عشان الكلام ده مش عاجبهم يعني. Anyway, but submission is an important thing. Saint Mary herself submitted to the will of God when she said, behold the maidservant of the Lord, let it be to me according to your word. She submitted to, maybe that was not her plan. Probably she wanted to live a virgin in the temple, doing whatever, living her own life. Nobody knows about her. But she submitted to what God asked her to do. And we also see many things like that in the Bible. How God is asking us to submit, not to submit only to, and submit to God Himself, submit to fathers, submit to our parents, submit, even the husband and wife submit to one another. It's not just the wife should submit to the husband and that's it. But we submit to one another. Many things like that we can find that even Christ Himself submitted to the will of the Father, as it is said in the Hebrews. Though He was a son, yet He learned obedience by the things which He suffered. And having been perfected, He became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey Him. مع كونه ابنا تعلم الطاعة مما تألم به وإذ كمل صار لجميع الذين يطيعونه سبب خلاص أبدي. We every day we say our many times we say, Our Father who art in heaven. We say, Your will be done. But many times we say it, but we don't really act upon it. We say we wish that this is لتكن مشيئتك. But in fact, we are asking God for our own will, that God would do whatever we want Him to do for us. And this is, by this we are not really submitting in the right way. Christ Himself submitted to circumcision. He submitted to be circumcised. Though He is without sin, He also submitted to be baptized, though He is without sin again. And He submitted to Joseph and Saint Mary when He came with them to the temple, and when He stayed for a few days after that, He submitted to them. Then He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them. And by this He's showing how He is obeying even Saint Mary and Joseph. Christ submitted to many things. He submitted to the people who wanted Him, for example, to go out of His way and come to their house. Jairus, the woman مثلا who had the issue of blood, He submitted to her and stopped everything to look to her. He submitted to the centurion by wishing to go to his house and healing his lad. So we can see Christ is a real model of submission for us. مش عارف بقى, if we ask ourselves, do we really like to submit or not? In the monastic life, submission and obedience is one of the very important values that they keep. And they like to be submitting to their elders. It's not just, and it's like a desire of them that I want to be submitting. And by this, I know that I will be saved. Because as I am submitting to my father in confession, for example, خلاص, it's not my responsibility anymore because I'm doing whatever he's asking me. It's his responsibility, and he will be taking care of me, and by this I will be saved. They say even that in Egypt, if you go to the monasteries, you will find that the monastery door is a very low opening كده, that you have to bow down in order to be able to enter. And by this, they made it in this way, especially so that you would understand that you need to bow yourself. You need to submit. You need to subject yourself. You are not just going straight forward and going in. So maybe we need to learn this kind of submission. We need to start to understand how to submit to God, how to submit to our fathers in confession, how to submit to our parents, how to submit to our husbands and wives, and how we also submit to God's commandments. Many times we feel that we heard the commandments, but do we really do the commandments? Do we really keep them? Are we submitting to the commandments of God? Sometimes, yes, we submit to some of the commandments, but not all of them. And by this, we may be saying to ourselves, I'm good. I'm submitting to some of the commandments. Maybe I'm not able to submit to all of them, but it's enough for me to submit to so and so and so. Of course, we cannot say that because it's if we are at work or so, and our leader or whatever asks us to do some things, we need to do all of them. We can say to him, well, we have done 70% of what you asked me, and that's enough, good enough. We need to do whatever our leaders at work, for example, ask us, and by this, we need to follow the same example with God, doing all the commandments. So even the older, the parents, it is mentioned in the Bible how the parents should take care of their children and not to bother them, not to provoke them. By this, the parents are submitting in a way to their children. And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. And many things that we need to think of the submission, you can find it in the Bible. And submission teaches us to be humble, helps us to get the blessings, get the peace in everything that we do. By this, it also helps us to get the grace from God, helps us to be delivered from the trickeries of the adversary, and gives us salvation and helps us in all our lives. As servants, we need also to submit to our leaders. We are all, of course, we are brothers and sisters as one body, but we have some kind of organization so that we need to submit to it, so that we will be doing our work in a good way. Sometimes I hear from some people, for example, that you agreed on something in the service, but I don't agree on the same thing, so I will not be doing it, which is not right. If we agreed on something, or if, let's say, the leaders asked us to do something, we need to be doing whatever we have been asked for, because they tried their best to find the best solution for the issue that is in front of them, and finally they are hoping that by this we will be having a better service for our children and also keeping the commandments of God. May God help us all. I wish to hear from you if you would like to ask any questions or comment on anything, so that we can benefit together. If we don't have anything else, then Thomas will like to talk to us about the new service. God willing, we'll be starting, hopefully, our new service, new year. I know that some schools have started already, but for us, probably will not be able to start before the ordination of Mina, and which is next Saturday, Sunday, next weekend. And then after that, the week after would be the goodbye weekend for the kids to say, for the servants to say goodbye to their kids. And then we'll start hopefully on the 2nd. Is it the 2nd of September or the 1st of September? 2nd of September.
كل سنة وانتم طيبين.
أنت طيب.
So I'm briefly going to give an overview of the service this year. So more of the focus is going to be more on the structure. So a lot of people I know have been asking about when do we get our assignments, when do we get our assignments, when do we get our assignments. So the focus this year was more about how do we serve better? How do we serve our youth better? How do we serve whomever we serve better? And how do we focus on the service? And then how to improve the service. So we listened, we observed, and then we looked to make changes. And we got together and we tried to discuss what's best for the service and how can we make the changes. So there's multiple things that we focused on to improve the service. So some of the top level changes that we'll be making, and I'll kind of mention their names and their new service at the top level. And then from there, we'll get into some of the other changes and why we made some of them. But mainly all the assignments, all this stuff, who am I serving with, everything will come out this week. So you'll be getting an email notification from Tantafef, and you'll understand why when I explain here. So the first thing is on how to improve and how to help our service and how to focus on our services. We ourselves need to be filled before we can serve others, right? So the focus here is Uncle Michel will become the coordinator for the servant education and children education. So his focus will be on improving our knowledge as servants, along with others that will be helping him, and also the curriculum of the actual Sunday school. So there will be a focus on how are we, what are we learning? Also, servants, having a curriculum for them. I know many of you have talked about and asked about a curriculum for the servants meeting itself. So this is what we're implementing. We're going to have a curriculum. I think a survey that was sent out over a month ago asking for your input on various things. So we put all that together, we gathered all that information, and we've collected it, and we've kind of created a curriculum that will be eventually posted and shared with everyone. And again, communication is a big thing for the service as well this year. The other thing will be, Tantafef will be the coordinator for the servant relationships and communication. So many of you spoke about how do we improve, how do we get to know one another, how do we improve and build the unity and the love amongst servants. So now we have a focus on someone that will actually look at putting in place activities, how to build that relationship between servants. We need to, I know last year we did something like we went to a park together, but forgive me, it was a cold day, so I know a lot of you didn't really enjoy it too well. But we'll try to do more activities like that where we can bring the servants all together, we can build unity, and we can build that love amongst each other. Another thing is, in Sunday school, we realized was that there was some classes that were spending and some classes that weren't spending. Some classes were bringing gifts to their kids, some classes that weren't doing so or not as much. So we're kind of trying to level that out. And by doing so, Mike Soriel will become the coordinator of the Sunday school finance or the service finance. So basically, we've talked about budgets in the past, but going forward, we need first of all, we need to understand and have historical data. That way we can move forward in looking at how do we, as we get new servants in these roles, how do we give them the information and arm them and give them the tools that they need so they understand, each class, as we're forecasting the numbers, the increases of each of the classes, we have the appropriate budgets that we're spending on these gifts. In addition, so 2 new people will be added to this group. First of all, there'll be the coordinator for the Sunday school or service administration. Farid Makhail will become the coordinator for the service administration. The focus here now, and Abuna Luke has talked about this a couple times, is the faithfulness in service. So the focus here will be, Farid will be working with each of the coordinators. The coordinators will be responsible for attendance of the servants, and will be also responsible for the attendance of the people whom we serve as well. So those are 2 key things. The other thing is making sure that we have visitations in place, making sure that if there's someone sick that we're notified. We know that someone's sick, someone's in the hospital. Many times the fathers get calls, I get calls that my kid has been in the hospital, and I mentioned this to you guys before, that my kid's been in the hospital, my kid's broken, my kid's been away from Sunday school for 3 weeks, and no one has called them. And that's not right. We should be chasing down each one of our kids. They are our brothers, as Abuna has talked, that as we serve, we consider each one of us, they're our brothers, our sisters. So if they are truly our brothers or sisters, we should actually be chasing them and focusing on them and asking about them. And so there's much more to the administration, but just to kind of awareness, also the attendance here. I'm happy to see that there's more numbers here today, but usually the numbers average in the servants meeting around 30. Santa Fe tallies the numbers, it's around 30, which we have over 120 servants. So, as Abuna said, both fathers have said, and has been mentioned in the email, that servant meetings are important, and we need to be here. Again, we're going to have a curriculum, we're going to have people brought in, possibly psychologists, others, and we're going to do this in multiple ways, here in servants meeting, and then other things when I talk about Uncle Michelle talking about, or having a curriculum for the servants' growth. So maybe bringing in psychologists, maybe bringing in people that understand each age level and how to speak to them, how to work with them, how to serve them. There's other things from the outside that we might bring in to help us with some of these kids and what we're dealing with, some of the special needs, some of the what we're facing lately with kids that have ADHD or kids that, some of that stuff, and it's how to deal with them, how to serve them. So these are the things we're focused on. The other person that we've added on is the service activities. Service activities will be George Demetri or George Mikhail. He'll be the coordinator for the service activities. And this is, again, we're trying to alleviate the coordinators from all these minor tasks and assign them to someone else. They'll be working with the coordinators, but the coordinator's focus is to focus on the class, is to focus on the service. The more we can get the servants and those coordinators focused on whom they serve, and the better it is for the service. So the service activities coordinator will be responsible in making sure that we have trips, we have birthdays, we have graduations, we have everything out on a calendar, communicated. Many times people speak of and say that we don't know, we weren't aware. Where's it at? So this is going to be labeled, this is going to be illustrated, and it's going to be on, we'll figure out where we're going to be putting it, working with the IT group, where we can display it to everyone, where they know what's happening, when the activities are happening. We'll have scheduled birthdays where it's all consistent throughout Sunday school. Another thing, like I said, I'm trying to give high level, I'm not going into the details. Another thing going forward this year, one major change, is that there will be no more sub-coordinators. There will only be coordinators going forward. So the focus here is that in the past that there was a coordinator, a sub-coordinator, and one would be assigned to one class, and the other would be assigned to another class. This going forward, we've removed the sub-coordinator, there will only be a coordinator, and the coordinator will not be assigned to a class. So again, it's alleviating and making sure that the coordinator is focused on the service, making sure that the lesson plan is in place, making sure the curriculum is assigned, making sure those who are giving the talks are assigned, making sure that they're reviewing the lessons. There's a number of things that the coordinators will be given, tasks, or what basically their service description or job description, so they understand what's required of them. Again, the focus here is to make sure that we improve the service and we grow the service. Another thing is that as we looked across, we saw that there were several groups that were not even. Some of the coordinators had 2 classes assigned, some had 3, some had 4. So we were looking to even all that out. So again, to help the service, to help the coordinators, to help them focus. Too much it's a burden on a lot. And again, looking into the classes, we're trying to also even out the younger groups versus the older servants in the class. So again, we don't overburden the older adults when we have younger, new servants in the class. So these are kind of the high-level things of what's to come in this year's service. This year, Tanta Faf has been communicating with the coordinators. She's communicated with most of them. We've been in talks with a lot of the coordinators as well. And then starting Tuesday and Wednesday, each of you will be getting an assignment. So the coordinator and the class will be getting their assignments. That's the high level. Any questions? Yes? Yes. No, you're right. Sure. 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 No, it's, again, as servants, I think we're adults. I think if we have a plan in place, we know who the speaker is, and we have everything in place, I think the servants in the class can continue to work. It's not a management, it's more of the coordinator serving the servants, right? So it's, if leadership or anything is needed or decisions need to be made, either one of us, any one of us can step in and make that decision. But I expect that the servants can continue to function given that the coordinator has given them the task, has listed out, working with the servants, of course, not dictating, working with the servants, have created the lesson plan, everyone knows ahead of time. You know, many of the complaints as well that we hear is that servants either back out the last minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour before the service and they had the talks, or they don't turn in their lessons for lessons review. So there's many things that we need to correct going forward this year. And I'm sorry, but forgive me, but for servants to back out in the last 10 minutes, the last hour, it's not right. It's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair for the servants. It's not fair to anyone. So please take into consideration when you do that. If you know ahead of time, if you're at work, you're running late, let them know. Let the coordinator know. That way they can prepare, they can shift, they can do something else. That the kids come and actually benefit from the class, not a random whatever it is, since we have to fill some time. So, but the spiritual day, absolutely. That's more things that we have to work on, spiritual days, getting together, the unity, the love, that's all part of it. And then also, we're hoping that we can also, through that service as well, have books assigned where all of us can read together. Like Abuna has like a book club at St. Marina, but we can do this amongst servants where we can read it together and maybe we can benefit together. And I'm assuming we can look at primarily, I think Pope Shenouda's books have all been written in Arabic and English. We can read together. Questions? It's not just one person. It's not just one person. We're growing that group. It's a new service, but we're growing that group. Yeah, it's going to be a service. Questions? No questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. One thing, Bas, I want to remind you of. On Saturdays, sometimes I see the servants coming to their classes after the children. They are, first of all, they didn't attend the Vespers, and afterwards also they don't only that, but also they come after the service starts, which is not right. We should be role models for the kids. We should be here in the Vespers, encouraging our kids to attend the Vespers. The Vespers is a service. It's not for the deacons only or for Abuna alone, but it's for all of us to be preparing ourselves for the liturgy for the next day, Sunday. And also we are teaching our kids to attend the Vespers. That's why we moved the service from Sunday to Saturday, so that they would understand the Vespers, they would understand the midnight praises, and we need also to participate in this. So please try your best to come before the Vesper starts. We start it nowadays like 5 p.m. Try to be here by 5 so that the kids will learn from you to come as well early as well, and will find you in their classes when they go to the classes, not you coming after the kids. May God reward you. Abuna, if you would like to add anything, pray for us. Thank you.
Please, brother, pray, thank you, and say, Our Father who art in heaven.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily